The first thing Caleb Hart noticed about Mara Ellison was not the wheelchair. It was the door. The glass security door on the 42nd floor of Asterion Mobility Headquarters had been programmed to remain open for 4 seconds after a badge scan. 4 seconds was plenty if you were walking. It was barely enough if you were maneuvering a wheelchair through the narrow turn beside the reception desk. Caleb noticed because at 11:38 on his first night, he watched the door begin closing while Mara Ellison was still crossing the threshold. One of her security guards grabbed it. The other reached toward the back of her chair. "Don't touch me." Mara did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The guard's hand stopped instantly. Caleb stood 20 feet away with a trash bag in one hand and a cleaning cart beside him. Mara reversed half a foot, corrected the angle, and moved through. The automatic door brushed the rear wheel before opening again. Her jaw tightened. Nobody said anything. The guards continued toward the executive corridor. Mara followed. Caleb looked at the door, then at the sensor, then at the small control panel mounted above the frame. His supervisor had spent most of orientation explaining what not to do on executive floors. Do not speak to executives unless spoken to. Do not touch papers. Do not move personal items. Do not enter the private office if the red light above the door is on. And above everything else, do not create problems. Caleb pulled a small notebook from his pocket. 42F East Security Door, hold open delay too short. He wrote the time. 11:38 p.m. Then pushed his cart toward the service corridor. What Caleb did not know was that 7 weeks later, 2 security guards would stand between him and that same woman. His badge would already be dead. His job would be hanging by a thread. And everyone on the executive floor would expect Mara Ellison to let security remove him. Instead, she would look at the guards and say, "Step aside. He stays." But before that could happen, Caleb had to survive long enough for Mara to learn something almost no one around her understood. He was not trying to save her. He was simply refusing to pretend he had not seen what everyone else had trained themselves to ignore. If you have ever respected the person who notices the small problem before it becomes the big one, tap like. And tell me below who taught you that doing a job properly matters even when nobody important is watching. Caleb Hart was 38 years old, widowed, and 6 weeks behind on almost everything that could send a reminder. Electricity, car insurance. One medical bill from 3 years earlier that seemed capable of surviving longer than most governments. His daughter June was 8. She believed their apartment was cozy. Caleb knew it was 900 square feet above a laundromat in Dorchester. The heat worked when it felt cooperative. The kitchen window rattled whenever buses passed. The bathroom door required lifting before closing because one hinge had pulled loose from the frame. June loved it. That helped. She had turned the narrow hallway into an art gallery using painter's tape. She named the radiator Leonard. She insisted the fire escape was their balcony. Caleb had stopped correcting her. 3 years earlier, there had been another person in the apartment. Rachel, his wife. June's mother. Rachel had been the one who remembered birthdays, school forms, dentist appointments, and which groceries Caleb would forget unless somebody wrote them twice. She had also been the one who told him his habit of repairing broken appliances at midnight was aggressively suburban. Then an aneurysm took her on an ordinary Wednesday morning. No warning, no long illness, no time to become prepared. Caleb had spent the first year after Rachel died doing 2 jobs badly. Grieving and pretending he was not grieving. He had been an industrial maintenance electrician at a hospital complex then. Good work. Union benefits. Overtime, emergency calls at terrible hours. After Rachel died, terrible hours became impossible. June was 5. Caleb missed 3 overnight call-outs in 2 months. His supervisor tried to protect him. Eventually, there was nothing left to protect. Caleb resigned before disciplinary paperwork made the decision for him. He did residential electrical work for a while. Then maintenance. Then whatever shifts fit around June. The night custodial position at Asterion paid less than his old trade. But it came with health insurance. and the schedule let him make breakfast, pack lunches, take June to school, sleep while she was there, pick her up at 3, eat dinner together, then leave her with his older sister Elena at 9. It was not glamorous. It worked. Caleb had discovered that after loss, works became an underrated category. The morning after his first shift, he dropped June at school and slept until 2:30. At 3:15, June came through the school doors wearing one glove. "Where's the other one?" "I have one. I can see." "Then why did you ask?" Caleb stared at her. She smiled. "Where is the second glove?" "Unknown. You had 2 this morning. Statistically likely. You're 8. That doesn't mean statistics stop." Caleb sighed. They walked home. June told him about a science project. A class argument over whether whales counted as basically fish. A girl named Nora who had cried because somebody broke her pencil. Then she asked, "Did you meet the robot lady?" Caleb looked down. "The what?" "The famous lady." "Mara Ellison?" "Yes, you know who Mara Ellison is?" June gave him the expression children used when adults were being disappointing. "She's on the commercials." "What commercials?" "The chair commercials." Asterion doesn't make chair commercials. They make robot things for people who use chairs. "Some." "Did you meet her?" "I saw her." "Does she have a robot chair?" "No." "Does it have rockets?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because rockets would violate several building codes." June thought, "You should ask." "I will not ask the CEO if her wheelchair has rockets." "Why?" "Because I enjoy employment." That night, Caleb reported the security door through the facilities system. At 10:17, the request returned. Closed, operating within specification. Caleb stared at the message, then reopened the ticket. 4 seconds meets minimum setting. Actual access path requires turning maneuver. Recommend 7-8-second hold open interval. At 10:24, the request closed again. No fault found. Caleb put his phone away. At 11:35, he reached the 42nd floor. The same door waited. He took out his phone, opened the stopwatch, badged through, 4.2 seconds. He pushed his cart backward and tested again, simulating a wider turning arc. The door began closing against the cart. "Are you planning to clean that door or interrogate it?" Caleb turned. Mara Ellison sat 10 feet behind him. No guards this time. Dark navy suit. Hair pulled back. A tablet across her lap. Her wheelchair was narrow, black, and almost completely silent. Caleb stepped away from the sensor. "Both, apparently, you're new." "Yes, name?" "Caleb Hart." "What is wrong with the door?" "Depends who you ask." "I asked you." He liked that. Not the authority. The precision. "The hold-open delay is too short for the approach angle. It was inspected last month." "I believe that." "You think the inspector was incompetent?" "No." Mara studied him. "What do you think?" "That he probably tested whether the door met its program specification." "And?" "He didn't test whether the specification made sense for the hallway." Silence. Caleb expected annoyance. Instead, Mara looked at the door. "Show me." He hesitated. She noticed. "You reported it?" "Twice, and facilities closed it?" "Twice. Show me." Caleb badged through. He walked the straight route. 4 seconds is fine like this. Then, he pushed the cart to approximate the turn from the reception side. He moved slowly through the same angle Mara had used the night before. The door began closing against the cart. Mara watched. Caleb stepped back. "That," she looked at the sensor. Then at him. "You timed it?" "Yes, of course you did." Caleb was not sure whether that was criticism. Mara removed her phone from the side pouch of her chair. She called someone. "Facilities control." Pause. Extend east executive vestibule, hold open to 8 seconds. Another pause. "No, tonight," she ended the call. Caleb said thank you. Mara looked at him. "That wasn't for you." "I know." She rolled through the doorway. It remained open. 8 seconds. The next night, Caleb discovered someone had placed a small white sticker inside his supply cabinet. No name, just 2 words. Door fixed. He smiled before he could stop himself. The second thing Caleb noticed about Mara Ellison was that everyone asked before doing things she had not asked them to do. Would you like me to move that? Would you like the door? Should I carry that? Do you need? May I, can I? Most of the time Mara answered no. Occasionally she answered nothing. Caleb assumed the questions were meant as kindness. He also noticed how tired they made her. So he did not ask. He opened doors when he was already opening them for himself. He moved objects when cleaning required moving them and returned them exactly. If Mara dropped something, he pointed to it. If she asked him to pick it up, he did. If not, he did not. It was not a strategy. It was manners. Apparently, very few people around her agreed on what manners meant. 3 nights later, Caleb entered her office at 1:06. Mara was still working. The office looked like somebody had designed a luxury hotel around a war room. Warm walnut, dark stone, floor-to-ceiling windows, 2 monitors, a low conference table, shelves filled with engineering books, awards, and prototypes. Caleb saw the problem immediately. A sculptural side chair had been pulled away from the wall. It narrowed the passage between Mara's desk and the window. He moved it. She looked up. Leave that. Caleb stopped. It blocks the path. It does not. He looked at the gap, then at her chair. It will if you turn right. Mara's eyes narrowed. Are you auditing my furniture? No, it sounds like auditing. I'm cleaning around it. Put it back. Caleb did. 2 minutes later, Mara backed away from her desk, turned right. The rear wheel caught the chair leg. She stopped. Caleb kept wiping the shelf. Mara looked at the chair, then at him. He said nothing. She repositioned. Passed through. Caleb finished cleaning. The next night, the chair sat against the wall. Neither mentioned it. That became the pattern. Caleb noticed. Mara pretended not to care. Then adjusted. A coat rack placed too close to the automatic office door. A conference room power cable running across a turning path. A heavy waste bin with a foot pedal. A coffee table with sharp corners positioned where assistants regularly pushed it after meetings. None was dramatic. That was the point. Accessibility problems rarely announced themselves with trumpets. They accumulated. 1 inch. 1 second. One badly placed object at a time. Caleb reported everything. Facilities began recognizing his name. Some tickets were fixed. Others came back with polite versions of "stop bothering us." Mara apparently began reading them. Caleb learned this one Friday at 12:47 when she said, "The 6th-floor restroom dispenser." He looked up from changing a liner. "What about it? You reported it." "Yes, why?" Mounted high. "It meets code." Caleb nodded. "I know." Mara waited. He continued cleaning. "That's the answer? You didn't ask a question." Her expression sharpened. "Why report something that meets code?" Caleb looked at her. "Because meeting code and being easy to use aren't the same thing." Mara stared. A long silence. Then her gaze dropped toward her hands. "Who taught you that?" "Nobody. Everyone gets taught something." Caleb leaned on the cart handle. "I worked hospital maintenance 11 years. That caught her attention. "Electrical? Mostly you're licensed?" Was. Certification lapsed. Why? He could have lied. Did not. "My wife died. I changed jobs." The room became quieter. Mara looked at him differently. Not softer, less certain. "I'm sorry." Caleb nodded. "Thank you." He resumed work. Mara returned to her screen. The conversation should have ended. Instead, she asked, "How old is your child?" Caleb looked back. 8 boy? Girl name? June? Mara nodded. Nothing else. The following week, the 6th-floor dispenser was lowered. Caleb saw the completed ticket, executive authorization. He stared at it for several seconds, then closed the app. The load-bearing object entered the story on a Tuesday. It was a chess piece. A wooden knight. Dark walnut. One ear chipped. It sat on the corner of Mara's desk beside a stack of legal folders. Caleb had seen it every night, never touched it. That night, his cleaning cloth caught the edge of one folder. The folder shifted. The chess knight rolled. Caleb caught it before it hit the floor. Mara's chair stopped. Her face changed instantly. Put that down. He did. Carefully, same spot. I'm sorry. Mara reached for it. Her fingers closed around the worn piece. Caleb had never seen her hold anything that way. Not tightly. Protectively, my father carved it. Caleb did not ask. She looked at the chipped ear. He made a whole set when I was 11. This is the only piece I still have. What happened to the others? Mara looked at him. That sounded like a question. It was. You're becoming familiar. Caleb nodded. Fair, he returned to the cart. Mara turned the knight between her fingers. My mother sold the house after he died. Caleb stopped. Box got lost. He understood. Sorry, I hated chess. That surprised him. My father loved it. She set the knight down. He said I played too quickly. Were you bad? No. Mara's eyes lifted. I was excellent. Caleb smiled. Of course, she almost did. The knight remained. Over the next month, Caleb saw Mara touch it whenever a call went badly. Whenever legal counsel arrived. Whenever her head of security, Grant Mercer, came to the office. Grant was not related despite the surname coincidence. He had been a Federal Protective Service contractor before joining Asterion after Mara's accident. Tall, early 50s. Disciplined, not unpleasant. He simply believed the safest environment was the one he controlled. Caleb first met him properly when Grant stopped the cleaning cart at the executive elevator. Open it. Caleb did. Grant inspected the shelves. Trash bags, spray bottles, microfiber cloths, mop heads, small tool pouch. He pointed. What's that? Multimeter, Grant looked up. You carry electrical testing equipment while cleaning? Habit. Why? Lights fail. Call maintenance. I was maintenance. You aren't now. Caleb met his eyes. No. Grant stared at him another second. Then closed the cart. Executive floor access after 1 a.m. requires security notification beginning tonight. Why? Grant's expression did not change. You don't require the reason. Caleb nodded. All right. At 1:08 he reached Mara's office. Grant stood outside. Mara noticed. What is this? Grant answered. Updated overnight access procedure. I did not request one. Threat assessment did. What threat? Information exposure. Mara looked at Caleb. He continued cleaning. Grant lowered his voice. We've had photography incidents. Caleb knew enough not to react. Mara did. This is a custodian. This is an employee with unrestricted physical proximity during low staff hours. Caleb set down the trash bag. Do you want me to leave? Mara's eyes moved to him. Grant answered first. Yes, Mara looked at Grant. I asked him. Silence, Caleb waited. Mara said, finish the office. Grant's jaw tightened. Mara, he is cleaning. Grant stepped aside. Caleb finished. No triumph, no smile. He left when done. The next night security was gone. That should have been the end. It was not. Grant began watching. Badge logs, cleaning schedules, facilities reports. Caleb noticed because men like Grant did not know how not to be obvious when they believed observation itself was invisible. He did not care. He had June. Rent, work, and a CEO who apparently enjoyed arguing with trash bins. A week later, June met Mara. Not because Caleb wanted her to. Because life ignored scheduling. Elena called at 8:12. My mother-in-law fell. Caleb was packing his lunch. How bad? Hip, maybe. Ambulance is here. Go, I have June. I know, you're working. Caleb looked at his daughter at the kitchen table. June held up both hands. I can stay home. No, I am nearly 9. You are 8 and 3 months. That is nearly 9 if you round aggressively. Caleb rubbed his forehead. Elena said, take her. To work? Ask, you say that because it isn't your job. Correct. His supervisor allowed it under one condition. June remained in the basement staff lounge. At 10:50, she lasted 11 minutes. Then the vending machine ate her dollar. At 11:03, she declared the lounge depressing. At 11:19, Caleb's supervisor got pulled upstairs for a water leak. At 11:24, June sat beside Caleb's cart doing math homework. Stay here. I am here. Do not wander. I don't wander. You disappeared in Target last week. I was comparing cereal. That is wandering with research. They reached 42. The security door opened 8 seconds. June noticed. This is fancy. Quiet. Why? Because people are working. At midnight? Yes, that seems unhealthy. Caleb had no answer. Mara's office door was open. June saw her. Caleb saw June see her. He knew. Don't. I didn't say anything. You were preparing. I was breathing. Your face gets organized before a question. June frowned. What does that mean? Mara looked up. Her eyes moved to June, then Caleb. You brought someone. Temporary emergency. June stepped forward. Hi, Mara looked at her. Hello, I'm June. So I guessed. June turned toward Caleb. You told her? Your father mentioned you. June looked pleased. Do you really build robot legs? Caleb closed his eyes. Mara said, not personally, but your company does. Among other things. Can your wheelchair go downstairs? No, that seems like a design failure. Caleb stared at his daughter. Mara stared too. Then something extraordinary happened. She laughed. Not the almost smile, not a polite executive sound, an actual laugh. Short, low, surprised out of her. June smiled. You should make one. People have tried. Did they make good ones? Not good enough. Then you should. Mara looked at Caleb. Does she always do this? Yes, June said. He means ask smart questions. I do not. Mara's mouth moved again. Caleb pointed toward the conference table. Sit. Homework. June sat. For 20 minutes, Caleb cleaned while Mara worked, and June did fractions. Then June wandered. Not far. Technically, she stopped near Mara's desk. Her eyes found the wooden knight. Is that a horse? Knight. Looks like a horse. It is shaped like one. Then horse. Mara looked at her. June pointed at the chipped ear. Broken, Caleb said. June, I didn't touch. Mara picked up the knight. My father made it. My mom made pottery. Mara's expression changed. June continued before Caleb could stop her. She died. Mara glanced at Caleb. He looked down at the cart. June looked at the knight. Dad keeps her blue bowl even though it has a crack. Caleb closed his eyes. Mara asked, why? June shrugged. He says because it's ours. Caleb finally intervened. Homework, I finished. Check it. I checked. Check emotionally. That is not math. Mara laughed again. When they left 40 minutes later, June had drawn a picture on a yellow sticky note. A horse with 3 legs and a cape. She placed it beside Mara's wooden knight. For him. Mara looked at the drawing. He has 4 legs. Not anymore. Why? Adventure. Then June walked away. Caleb apologized in the elevator. 4? Everything. Mara glanced at the sticky note. She had taken it. Your daughter is unusual. Yes, that wasn't criticism, I know. The next night, the drawing was attached to Mara's monitor. Caleb pretended not to notice. The recovery hint appeared 2 weeks later. Quietly, almost accidentally. Caleb was cleaning a small rehabilitation lab on the 38th floor. Asterion used the room for internal testing. Parallel bars, pressure sensors, prototype braces, a standing support frame. Mara entered alone. Caleb moved toward the door. You can finish. He stopped. You sure? Yes, Mara approached the bars. Caleb focused on wiping a counter. He heard the brakes on her chair, a transfer board, fabric moving, then silence. He did not look. You are making this strange. Caleb turned. Mara sat on a low therapy bench, her feet positioned on the floor. No stranger than usual. You deliberately looked away. Yes, why? Privacy. I told you to stay. You didn't tell me to stare. Mara looked almost annoyed by the logic. She gripped the parallel bars. Caleb returned to cleaning. A minute passed, then another. He heard a breath, a small scrape. He glanced. Mara's right leg had tightened, barely visible, muscle under fabric. Not movement exactly. Activation, Mara saw him see it, her face closed. Nothing happened. Caleb wiped the counter. Okay, you saw nothing. Okay, you're agreeing too quickly. He looked at her. What answer do you want? I don't know. Then, okay seems efficient. Mara stared. Her hands relaxed. Naomi thinks there is more preserved function than the original prognosis suggested. Caleb nodded. Okay, she thinks with enough work I may be able to stand with support. He said nothing. Mara's voice sharpened. Everyone says something. What would be useful? She looked at him. Nothing. Then nothing. Caleb went back to work. No celebration, no prediction, no promise. The next week he noticed Mara's schedule included rehabilitation 4 mornings instead of 2. He did not mention it. She noticed him not mentioning it. That mattered. The company crisis began with a sound. Asterion was preparing to launch Anchor, a docking platform designed to secure powered wheelchairs inside autonomous transport vehicles without requiring manual tie-downs. Hospitals wanted it. Airport systems wanted it. Transit companies wanted it. Investors wanted it immediately. The prototype worked beautifully. Until it did not. During one late-night endurance test, Anchor released for less than 1 second. The test chair shifted. Safety restraints caught it. Nobody was injured. Engineering blamed a software interruption. Software could not reproduce the error. Electrical blamed a power supply. Power check normal. Mechanical blamed actuator tolerance. Actuators passed inspection. For 3 days, the failure disappeared. Then returned. Random, brief, dangerous. The board wanted launch delayed. The CFO wanted the test isolated. Grant wanted the test lab locked down. Mara wanted an answer. Caleb learned about it because his crew lost access to the 36th floor. At 11:10, a guard stopped his cart. Floor closed. Cleaning scheduled. Cancelled. Why? Restricted test. Caleb nodded. He turned away. Then heard it. A heavy relay clicked behind the wall. Lights dimmed for half a second. Then returned. Caleb stopped. The guard noticed. Problem? When does that happen? What? The power transfer. No transfer. That was a transfer. The guard looked irritated. Move along. Caleb did. 20 feet down the corridor, he stopped again. Another click. A ventilation fan changed pitch. Then stabilized. Caleb wrote the time. 11:14, the next night. 11:12, click tiny dim. The night after. Nothing. At 11:46 click, Caleb opened the facilities app. Emergency generator exercise schedule. None UPS maintenance. None electrical service alerts. None he reported transient voltage event on 36F. Ticket closed. No event logged. Caleb reopened it. Closed again. He called building maintenance. Hart, custodial? Yes, you need something? I'm hearing a transfer relay on 36. System logs clean. Something is switching. You're not electrical staff. I know. Then stop opening electrical tickets. Caleb ended the call. At 1:05, Mara's office was occupied. She looked exhausted. The wooden knight sat in her palm. Caleb cleaned quietly. Mara said, "You reported electrical instability." He looked up. "Someone complains every time I file something?" Facilities director complained. "Efficient, they say there is no event." "There is. You measured it?" "No, then how do you know?" "I hear the contactor." Mara stared. Caleb continued. "Large relay. Probably transfer switch or local distribution control. Probably, yes, you are a janitor." "Yes, you say that very comfortably. It's accurate." Mara put down the knight. "You were an electrician. Maintenance electrician. Difference? Enough that I don't touch your equipment without authorization." Mara's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "When?" "What? When does it happen?" Caleb gave her the times. She wrote them down. The next afternoon, engineering compared the Anchor failure timestamps. 11:14, 11:12, 11:46, 3 matched. Not approximately. Exactly, Mara called Caleb at home. He was making grilled cheese. June answered because his hands were covered in butter. Hello? Silence. June looked at the phone. Hello? A woman's voice said, Is Caleb Hart available? June shouted, Dad, the robot lady is calling. Caleb closed his eyes. He took the phone. Sorry, Mara said. I heard. Of course. Your electrical event matches 3 failures. Caleb turned off the stove. All 3? Yes, what switching? We don't know. You have emergency power? 3 layers. 36 dedicated? Yes, any regenerative elevator equipment nearby? Pause. Why? Because elevators dump weird things into building power if filtering isn't right. Another pause. The freight bank shares a distribution zone. Caleb looked at the clock. When do freight elevators run heaviest? Overnight, cleaning deliveries, facilities. You need a power quality analyzer on the circuit during freight movement. Mara was silent. Then said, Can you come in early? Caleb looked at June. She was eating cheese from the cutting board. How early? 8. My shift starts 10. I know. Need childcare. I'll pay overtime. That doesn't create childcare. Silence, Mara said, right, not offended. Not used to the answer. Caleb added, I can be there 9:30. We'll work with that. At 9:28, Caleb entered the lab wearing his custodial uniform. 7 engineers stood around an Anchor prototype. The facilities director looked unhappy. Grant looked suspicious. Mara sat at the end of the table. Caleb stopped. I was told 6 people. Mara said, They multiplied. An electrical engineer handed Caleb a tablet showing waveform data. He stared. You're asking the janitor? The facilities director said it. Mara looked at him. We're asking the former hospital maintenance electrician who noticed the event your logs missed. Silence. Caleb wanted no part of the politics. He looked at the waveform. Freight elevator moved. Voltage sag. Small within normal building tolerance. Then a harmonic spike. Anchor controller reset a subcircuit for 0.73 seconds. There, not a product defect exactly. Not a building defect exactly. A system interaction nobody had tested. Caleb pointed. That, the engineer leaned closer. We filter that. Not enough. It's within spec. Caleb looked at Mara. She noticed. What? Your door was within spec too. The room went quiet. Mara almost smiled. Engineering spent 2 days reproducing the fault. They changed power conditioning. Modified Anchor's controller. Updated installation requirements for hospitals and transit facilities with regenerative elevator systems. The launch moved by 6 weeks. Investors hated the delay. Mara approved it anyway. The board hated the cost. She approved that too. Then she did something nobody expected. She asked Caleb to join a temporary operational review team. He said no. Mara stared at him. No? I have a job. This would be additional. I have June. Hours can be adjusted. I don't have an engineering degree. Neither did the electrical harmonic. Caleb almost smiled. Mara slid a contract across the desk. Consulting rate. Per hour. Limited scope. Field usability. Facilities interaction. Failure conditions. Caleb read the number. This is too much. No, it is. Compared to what? My wage. Your wage pays for custodial work. She tapped the contract. This pays for knowledge. Caleb looked at her. I don't want charity. Mara's face went cold. Then do not insult me by calling payment for work charity. He held her gaze. Fair, he signed. The new review team became something larger. Not immediately. At first, Caleb attended 2 meetings. Then 4. He asked questions engineers did not think were engineering questions. What happens when a nurse cleans this with alcohol 50 times a day? What happens when the charging cable gets rolled over by a linen cart? What happens when a building loses power for 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes? Can somebody reach this latch while wearing winter gloves? Who is supposed to move this thing when the patient is asleep? Why does this access panel require a screwdriver nobody on night shift carries? Some questions had easy answers. Others created uncomfortable silence. Mara liked those. The program acquired a name after June saw Caleb's temporary badge. Night Operations Review. She frowned. That's boring. Caleb said, corporate people like boring. Mara happened to be on speakerphone. I heard that. June leaned toward the phone. Call it ground truth. Mara went quiet. Caleb looked at June. Where did you hear that phrase? School, Mara said. Ground truth. June smiled. Better. 3 days later, the internal program became Ground Truth Review. Mara denied stealing from a child. June demanded royalties. Caleb's relationship with Mara changed slowly. Too slowly for gossip at first. Then quickly enough for Grant to notice. Caleb brought her coffee once because he was already getting his own. The next night she left one near his cart. He repaired a loose cabinet hinge in her office. She told him facilities could do it. He told her facilities had ignored the ticket for 9 days. She said, you are facilities adjacent. He said, that sounds contagious. She laughed. He began recognizing which evenings her rehabilitation sessions had been difficult. She became quieter, more exacting, sometimes crueler. Caleb did not excuse it. One night she snapped at him over a wastebasket he had moved 6 inches. He put it back, then said, you don't get to use me for target practice. Mara stared. No employee spoke to her that way. Caleb continued, if I did something wrong, tell me. If somebody else did, wait until they arrive. Her face hardened. You are forgetting where you work. No. Then perhaps remember who signed your paycheck. Caleb looked at her. Payroll signs it electronically. That was not the right answer. He knew immediately. Mara's eyes went flat. Get out. Caleb left. The next night he expected his badge not to work. It did. He reached her office. Mara sat behind the desk. The wooden knight was in front of her. She said, I was wrong. Caleb stopped. That sentence apparently cost her money. He waited. I received a report from rehabilitation that I did not like. Caleb said nothing. I took it out on you. Yes, her eyes narrowed. You could make this easier. Probably, I apologize. Accepted, Caleb pushed the cart inside. Mara looked irritated by how quickly the event ended. You're not going to make me suffer? I have 29 trash bins tonight. She stared, then laughed. The confession came later. Not about rehabilitation, about Grant. And the man before Grant. Mara had been engaged when the accident happened. His name was Julian Ross. A venture lawyer. Handsome in photographs. Competent, polite, he stayed through surgery. Stayed through rehabilitation intake. Stayed through the first month. Then visits became shorter. Then calls. Then messages. Then one morning he arrived with an expression Mara recognized before he spoke. He told me he still loved me. She sat in the empty executive kitchen at 2 a.m. Caleb leaned against the counter. He said the relationship had become centered on care. Her voice was flat. I told him I had never asked him to be my caregiver. Caleb listened. He said that wasn't the point. Mara turned the wooden knight between her fingers. He said every plan had changed. Caleb looked at the chipped ear. What did you say? That plan's change. A pause. He said he didn't know if he could build a life around uncertainty. Caleb understood something then. Mara did not fear being helpless. She feared becoming evidence for someone else's exit. So you started making people leave first, he said. Her eyes snapped to him. That is simplistic. Probably, it is also insulting. Maybe, Mara looked away. Caleb waited. After a long silence, she said, 9 assistants in 14 months. He had heard. 3 chiefs of staff he had not. 2 physical therapists. Caleb said nothing. Grant stayed. The statement held more weight than the others. He was assigned after a photographer entered rehabilitation using a vendor badge. Caleb's expression changed. Mara noticed. He took photographs. Caleb felt anger. Not pity. Anger? Sold them? Yes, that's why Grant watches everyone. Yes, he thinks he's protecting you. He is. Mara looked at Caleb. That is what makes it difficult. Caleb understood. A villain would have been easier. Grant cared. Too much. In the wrong shape. He thinks I am becoming careless around you. Caleb's face stayed neutral. Are you? Mara almost laughed. I don't know. That's a bad answer for a CEO. I know. He looked at the knight. What did your father say about chess? That I played too quickly. Maybe slow down. Mara stared. Is that romantic advice? No good. I am terrible at romance, I assumed. Caleb smiled. My wife proposed to me. Mara blinked. That explains more than it should. He laughed. Then the room became quiet again. What was she like? Mara asked. Rachel? Yes, Caleb looked toward the window. Loud, Mara waited. Not voice. Presence, he smiled faintly. She entered a room and everything rearranged around her. June sounds like her. June is worse. What happened? Caleb knew what she meant. Aneurysm, sudden? Yes. Mara lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. Caleb nodded. The worst part wasn't the funeral. She looked up. It was 8 months later. Why? I bought cereal. Mara frowned. Rachel hated cinnamon cereal. She said it smelled like a candle pretending to be food. A small smile. June wanted it. I bought it. Caleb looked down. And halfway home I realized I hadn't thought about whether Rachel would complain. Silence. That destroyed me more than the funeral did. Mara understood. The ordinary forgetting. Yes, he looked at the knight. You think grief is holding on. Half the time it's noticing what you stopped holding. Mara's fingers tightened around the piece. Neither spoke for a while. That conversation became the real beginning. Not romance. Permission. The expensive setback arrived when Anchor failed certification. Not because of the electrical issue. That was fixed. A new problem appeared during third-party testing. A mechanical locking pin wore faster than projected under road vibration. No injury. No release. But wear exceeded tolerance. Certification stopped. Another delay. Asterion lost a major European contract. Share price fell. The board's patience broke. Chairwoman Helen Ward called an emergency governance review. Grant increased security. Ground truth review was blamed by some executives for creating scope expansion. One director called Caleb's program an expensive distraction. Another asked why a janitor was attending product meetings. Mara defended it. Too aggressively. That made things worse. Grant visited Caleb in the basement equipment room. Walk with me. Caleb kept loading supplies. Busy, that wasn't a request. Caleb looked up. Grant waited. They walked into the service corridor. Grant said, You need to step away from ground truth. No. Grant's eyes narrowed. You didn't even ask why. The answer probably ends with something about boundaries. You are not qualified to advise executive leadership. I advise on field conditions. You are becoming part of her personal decision-making. Ask Mara. I am asking you. Caleb stopped. Grant turned. I knew what happened with Julian. Caleb's face hardened. Not my business. It becomes your business when you repeat the pattern. Caleb stepped closer. I am not repeating anything. You are emotionally significant to her. Silence, Grant continued. She trusts slowly and completely. That combination is dangerous. To whom? To her. Caleb stared. You think caring about someone is a security threat. I think dependency clouds judgment. Caleb almost laughed. Everybody depends on somebody. That is a slogan. No. It's Tuesday. Grant's jaw tightened. Step away. No. I can remove your executive access. You can. And ground truth. That's Mara's decision. I can recommend it. Do, Grant studied him. You think refusing makes you noble. Caleb shook his head. I think refusing means no. He walked away. The next night his executive badge failed. Red. The security officer looked uncomfortable. Access revised. Caleb pulled out his phone. Ground truth meeting had been removed from his calendar. His cleaning assignment changed to floors 20 through 29. Daytime consultation suspended pending role review. Caleb stared, then laughed once. Not because it was funny, because sometimes anger needed somewhere to go. He called Mara. No answer. Again, no answer. He sent one message. Grant changed my access. I will not create a scene. Call when you can. Then he went to work, 20 floors below. Mara did not discover it until nearly midnight. She called Grant first. Then Caleb. What happened? You know. I know Grant's version. Mine is shorter. Tell me. He thinks I'm a problem. You're not. Then fix it. Silence. Caleb regretted the sharpness. But not enough to take it back. Mara said, the board is already questioning my judgment. I know. If I override security tonight, Caleb closed his eyes. There it was. Not betrayal. Fear, he understood. That made it hurt more. You don't have to explain. Caleb, take care of your meeting. That's not what I'll be downstairs. He ended the call. The next 4 days were the worst since he started. Mara did not restore access. Not immediately. Ground truth continued without him. She sent documents. He answered only questions related to work. No coffee, no jokes, no late-night conversations. June noticed. You're grumpy. Thank you. Did Robot Lady fire you? No. Did you fight? No, you look like when Annalena says she's fine. Caleb stared. That's manipulative. It is observational. Go brush your teeth. June walked away, then returned. Are you going to quit? Caleb looked at her. Why? Because you quit the hospital. He became still. June had been 5. He did not realize she remembered. I left because our schedule stopped working. You were sad. Yes, you're sad now. Different, June thought about it. Mom said you leave things before they can leave you. Caleb's chest tightened. What? She said that once. When? When you wanted to sell the truck. He remembered. Rachel sitting on the kitchen counter. Laughing, Caleb had complained the truck would become unreliable. She told him he always wanted to replace things before they had the chance to disappoint him. He had forgotten. June had not. Are you leaving? Caleb looked at his daughter. No, that answer changed something. The next morning he emailed Mara. I am not resigning. If Ground Truth wants me, I'll continue after role review. If it doesn't, I'll finish the custodial contract properly. I'm not disappearing because this got uncomfortable. Mara read the message in rehabilitation. She kept reading it. Naomi noticed. What? Nothing. You've read that 6 times. Mara put the phone down. Naomi adjusted a brace. Ready? No. Good. Mara gripped the bars. Pushed. Her hips rose. Weight transferred. For 9 seconds she stood supported between the rails. Then sat. No celebration. Naomi wrote the number. Mara looked at the phone. Not disappearing. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday at 7 p.m. closed session. No staff without direct executive authorization. The primary question was whether Mara should retain unilateral launch authority. The secondary question nobody wrote down was whether her decisions after the accident had become too personal. Ground truth. Facility accessibility spending. The anchor delay. Caleb. Grant believed restricting Caleb protected her credibility. Mara understood the logic. She hated it. At 6:20, Caleb was cleaning 24. His phone rang. June, Dad? What happened? He heard Elena in the background. Nothing, I forgot my science folder. Where? Your truck. Caleb closed his eyes. I'm working. I know. Need tomorrow? Yes, I'll bring it in the morning. Okay, pause. Are you still not quitting? Caleb smiled faintly. Still not quitting. Good, he ended the call. At 6:43, his supervisor approached. Executive runner needs somebody to take a sealed facilities packet to 42. Caleb looked at him. You're joking. No, use someone else. Everyone else is on a spill call. Caleb looked at the envelope. Electrical certification records. Anchor power conditioning update. Board materials. You know my badge doesn't work. Security accepts delivery. Caleb took it. At 6:52, he reached the executive vestibule. The door opened. 8 seconds. Still, 2 guards stood beyond it. Grant was there. Caleb held up the envelope. Facilities packet. One guard extended a hand. Caleb gave it to him. Done. He turned. Then the boardroom door opened. A senior engineer rushed out. Where are the updated field review findings? The guard looked at the envelope. Here the engineer opened it. Flipped pages. No, this is electrical certification. He looked at Caleb. Your Hart. Yes, you wrote the ground truth review on the locking pin. Yes, we need your field use appendix. It was removed from my access folder. The engineer swore. It isn't in the board packet. Grant stepped forward. He is not authorized to participate. The engineer said, I need his findings. Get them electronically. His account is restricted. Caleb looked at Grant. Grant did not blink. The boardroom door opened again. Mara appeared. She saw Caleb. For 4 days she had rehearsed arguments about governance. Security, boundaries, optics. Now the man himself stood outside the glass partition, holding nothing but a cleaning cloth tucked into his belt, because someone had sent him upstairs with an envelope. Grant said, Return to your assigned floor. Caleb nodded. He turned. Mara said, Wait. Everyone stopped. Grant lowered his voice. Mara, she looked at the engineer. What do you need? His locking pin field analysis. It isn't in the packet. Mara looked at Grant. Why? Ground truth access was suspended. His access. The program review included. I did not suspend the program. Grant's jaw tightened. This is not the time. Mara looked through the glass at Caleb. He did not plead. Did not signal. Did not ask her to choose him. That mattered. Grant moved between them. Mr. Hart should leave. The guard shifted. Caleb took one step back. Mara saw it. Not fear. Respect. He would leave if she asked. He had spent weeks refusing to disappear, yet he would not force himself into her room. The difference became suddenly enormous. Mara looked at the guards. Step aside. Neither moved. Grant said, Executive session restrictions. Step aside. He stays. Silence. One guard looked at Grant. Then Mara. Grant exhaled. Mara, the board is already questioning. They can question me. Her voice remained calm. They do not get to erase useful information because they dislike where it came from. Grant stared. This is a security decision. No, Mara moved closer. This became a personal decision the moment you decided proximity to me made him dangerous without evidence. Grant said nothing. Mara looked at the guards again. Open the gate. They did. Caleb entered. He stopped beside Mara. Not too close. She looked at him. You said you weren't quitting. I'm not. Good. She turned toward the boardroom. Then come explain your report. Caleb glanced at his custodial uniform. I'm dressed for trash. Mara looked at the boardroom. So are some of them. The engineer covered a laugh. Even Grant almost smiled. Inside, Caleb did not save Mara's company. That was important. He explained one thing. The locking pin met laboratory cycle requirements. It failed faster in real-world conditions because debris accumulated along a recessed track nobody considered a contamination zone. Wheelchair tires carried salt, sand, hair, fine gravel, hospital floor wax, transit dirt. A technician cleaned the visible track. The recess remained. The pin wore unevenly. Ground Truth had recreated it using ordinary winter slush from the loading dock. Why wasn't this in certification? A board member asked. Caleb answered, certification tests what you design it to test. And your recommendation? Redesign the recess so contamination can't collect. Add inspection access. Change service interval. Cost? The engineer answered. Manageable? Delay? 3 weeks. The CFO looked irritated. Another delay. Caleb said nothing. Mara did. Yes, the room turned. She held the wooden knight in one hand. She had brought it into the meeting. Her father's chipped piece, the only one left from the set. We delay. One director said, That is precisely the pattern we are discussing. Mara looked at him. No. The pattern you are discussing is whether my caution is evidence of diminished judgment. Silence. Anchor failed because our process repeatedly valued clean specifications over messy reality. She placed the knight on the table. We tested the door and ignored the hallway. Caleb recognized the sentence. Mara continued. We tested voltage and ignored the elevator. Another pause. We tested the locking pin and ignored winter. She looked around the table. Ground truth exists because expertise becomes dangerous when it stops listening to people outside its own title structure. Helen Ward leaned forward. And Mr. Hart? Mara did not look at Caleb. Mr. Hart is one source of that information. Only that? The question crossed the line everyone had been circling. Mara's face remained calm. No, the room went still. She looked at Helen. I care about him. Grant closed his eyes briefly. Caleb did not move. Mara continued. And caring about someone is not evidence that every professional conclusion involving them is compromised. Helen watched her. It can be. Yes, Mara nodded. That is why we build governance. She pushed a document forward. I propose ground truth report through product assurance, not directly through my office. Mr. Hart's consulting work will be reviewed independently. Security access will be role-based and auditable. She looked at Grant. Not discretionary based on whether someone feels close to me. Grant absorbed it. Mara turned back to the board. If you believe I am incapable of leading because I have personal relationships, vote me out. Nobody spoke. But do not call isolation governance. The vote took 40 minutes. Mara retained launch authority with additional independent safety review. Ground truth became permanent. Anchor remained delayed until the pin redesign passed testing. Grant kept his job. Caleb kept his. No one won completely. That made the result believable. After the meeting, Caleb waited near the elevator. Mara came out last. The guards remained 20 feet away. Grant approached Caleb. I owe you an apology. Caleb looked at him. Yes, Grant almost laughed. I thought you might make that easier. No. Fair. Grant nodded. I believed I was protecting her. I know. That doesn't make it right. No. Grant held out his hand. Caleb shook it. Then Grant left. Mara rolled beside Caleb. You were hard on him. He'll recover. She looked at him. So you came upstairs. My supervisor sent me. That is deeply unromantic. I'm consistent. Mara held the knight. You didn't leave. Caleb looked at her. No, even after I let Grant block you for 4 days. No, why? He considered. Because you were afraid. Her expression tightened. That doesn't answer. It does. He leaned against the wall. I spent years thinking if I left first, the loss would hurt less. Mara understood. Did it? No, he looked at her. I'm trying something else. What? Staying long enough to find out what actually happens. Mara stared at him. That sounds dangerously like optimism. Don't spread it around. She smiled. Then said, I am transferring your custodial assignment. Caleb blinked. That went badly. Not firing you. Good, you cannot clean my office anymore. He looked at her. Because? Because I would like to have dinner with you. Caleb stared. Mara's courage nearly failed. He saved her by smiling. That is a conflict of interest policy I can support. The first date happened 2 weeks later. Not expensive. Caleb refused. They went to a small restaurant near the harbor. Mara arrived without executive security inside the dining room. Grant waited outside. A compromise. Caleb wore the only jacket June considered acceptable. June had inspected him before he left. You need better shoes. These are good shoes. They look like dad's shoes. I am a dad. That isn't permission. At dinner, Mara asked, did June approve the jacket? Yes. The shoes? No, she has standards. Unfortunately, they talked for 2 hours without discussing Asterion. Mostly, Mara cheated once. Caleb called it out. She denied wrongdoing. The second date included June. That was different. June insisted on mini-golf. Mara looked at the course. Ramps, narrow corners, artificial hills. Caleb immediately said, "We can go somewhere else." Mara looked at him. "Why?" He realized. "Stopped, good catch," she said. The course was badly designed. Mara completed 9 holes anyway. On hole 7, June said, "This ramp is stupid." Mara nodded. "Correct." Caleb looked at both of them. "I feel like I'm supervising a hostile accessibility audit." June pointed. "Ground truth." Mara laughed. At the end, June asked the question, "Are you his girlfriend?" Caleb nearly dropped the scorecard. Mara looked at June. "I think so." June frowned. "You think?" Mara glanced at Caleb. He said, "Adults enjoy unnecessary uncertainty." June sighed. "Fine." Then she looked at Mara. "Are you going to disappear?" The world stopped. Caleb's face changed. "June," Mara held up one hand. She looked at the girl. "No." June studied her. "You can't know." Mara felt the truth of that. "No." She corrected herself. "I can't promise everything." June waited. Mara continued. "But I can promise I won't leave without telling you the truth about why." June thought. "That's better." Caleb looked away. His eyes burned. Children did not always heal wounds. Sometimes they simply found them. Mara's physical recovery remained slow. Naomi worked with her 4 times a week. Strength, balance, transfers, supported standing. Some days nothing changed. Other days changed too much. One morning, Mara stood between parallel bars for 16 seconds. That afternoon, she could barely repeat 8. She went home furious. Caleb found her later with the night in her hand. "Bad day?" "Yes," he sat nearby. She said, "Yesterday I did 16. "Okay, today 8. "Okay, stop saying okay. What would help? Tell me it doesn't matter." Caleb shook his head. "It matters to you." Mara looked at him. "Tell me 8 is progress." "I don't know." She almost threw the night. He continued, "I know you did the work." "Silence, that I can say." Her hand relaxed. "That is annoying. I have experience." The first time Mara stood using a walker outside therapy, June was there. Not planned. June and Caleb had brought dinner to the rehabilitation floor after a late ground truth session. Mara was between the bars. Naomi looked at her. "Want to try the walker?" Mara looked toward Caleb, then June. June immediately turned around. "I'm not looking." Mara blinked. "Why?" "Dad says staring makes things weird." Caleb laughed. Mara did too. She transferred, gripped the walker, rose with assistance, stood, no applause. June remained facing the wall. "How long?" Naomi said. 12 seconds. June nodded. "Tell me when I can look." Mara lowered. "You can look." June turned. "Did you do it?" "Yes, cool." Then she opened the food bag. "We brought noodles." Mara stared. "That's all?" June looked confused. "You said you don't like people making things weird." Mara began laughing. Naomi shook her head. Caleb kissed June's hair. That was the child catalyst in its simplest form. Mara had spent so long fearing what progress would mean to other people that she had forgotten it could mean only what she wanted it to mean. 12 seconds. Then noodles. Nothing more. Nothing less. Anchor launched 5 months late. The redesign worked. The first installation went into a rehabilitation hospital in Minnesota, then Boston, then Seattle. Transit agencies followed. The delay that investors once called disastrous became a case study in safety governance. Nobody apologized for the headlines. Companies rarely did. Ground truth grew. Custodians joined design reviews, home health aides, hospital transporters, wheelchair technicians, parents, building engineers, people who actually lived beside the problem. Caleb became program director 18 months after his first cleaning shift. He refused the title twice. Mara had HR issue the badge anyway. June framed it. Underneath she wrote, "Former janitor. Currently annoying people professionally." Caleb kept it on his desk. Grant retired 3 years later. At his retirement dinner, he gave Mara a gift. A new wooden chess set. Handmade, walnut, every piece perfect. Mara opened it, touched the night, then looked at Grant. This is an apology? Partly. For what? Thinking protection meant controlling the board. Caleb said, The chessboard? Grant looked at him. No, Mara smiled. She placed her father's chip knight beside the new set. It did not match. She left it there anyway. That was the point. The old piece did not need replacing because something new existed. It only needed room beside it. Years later, on a rainy Thursday morning, Mara and Caleb returned to the 42nd floor security door. Asterion headquarters was being renovated. The old vestibule would be removed. Caleb stood where his cleaning cart had been his first night. Mara beside him. June, now 12, photographed everything for reasons neither adult understood. Caleb looked at the door. 4 seconds. Mara smiled. 8, now 12. Progress, the door opened, stayed open. They passed through together. Mara still used her wheelchair most of the time. She could stand with support, walk short distances with braces and a walker on good days. On bad days, she did not. The distinction stopped controlling the room. At their wedding, she used the wheelchair down the aisle because the garden path was long and she wanted energy left for the reception. June walked beside her. Not flower girl, she had rejected the title. Family representative, she called herself. Nobody knew what duties that included. Apparently all of them. Before the ceremony, Mara handed Caleb the wooden knight. Hold this. He looked at it. Why? My dress has no pockets. Luxury fashion remains structurally flawed. Ground truth should investigate. He put the piece in his jacket. After the vows, he returned it. Mara looked at the chipped ear, then at Caleb. My father would have liked you. You don't know that. He hated people who agreed with him too quickly. Then, definitely. She smiled. Years earlier, Mara had kept the knight because it was the last piece. The final survivor of something she thought could never exist again. Family, trust, a person who stayed without being trapped. Eventually, she understood the piece had never been proof that everything else was gone. It was proof that something could survive loss without remaining frozen inside it. Caleb learned a related lesson. Staying did not mean refusing change. He left custodial work, changed careers again. Let someone help with June. Allowed Mara to pay for dinner sometimes without turning the bill into a moral crisis. He stopped treating self-sufficiency like the only respectable form of survival. June grew. Ground truth became part of every Asterion product team. Anchor became one of the company's most successful systems, and the security policy changed too. Not because guards stopped protecting people. Because protection began requiring consent wherever possible. Grant helped write the new standard before retirement. He insisted on that. The old story around Mara had been that she was injured and became difficult. That was too simple. She had been hurt. Then watched people turn her injury into the most important fact about her. Some pitied, some praised, some controlled, some left. Caleb did something less dramatic. He noticed the door, then the chair, then the person, in that order. And when the moment finally came for Mara to choose whether fear would decide who was allowed near her, she chose differently. 2 guards blocked a janitor. The easy version of the story would say she let him through because she loved him. That was not quite true. She let him through because trust meant nothing if it disappeared the moment other people questioned it. Love came later. The refusal came first. Refusal to let job titles decide whose observations mattered. Refusal to turn protection into ownership. Refusal to make one bad day proof that recovery had failed. Refusal to treat standing as more worthy than sitting. Refusal to leave before being left. Refusal to confuse dignity with doing everything alone. Years after the wedding, June found the yellow sticky note she had drawn on her first night at Asterion. The 3-legged horse. The cape. She laughed. This is terrible. Mara took it. It is historically important. It has 3 legs. Adventure, June stared. You remember that? I remember everything. Caleb looked up. That is objectively false. Mara ignored him. The original wooden knight sat on her home office shelf. The sticky note drawing went beside it. June pointed. Why keep broken-looking stuff? Caleb and Mara looked at each other. Neither answered immediately. Then Mara said, because damaged and finished aren't the same word. June considered that. Very CEO. Caleb nodded. Painfully, Mara threw a pencil at him. He caught it. The knight remained. The drawing remained. And somewhere across the city, an automatic glass door opened for 12 full seconds, because years earlier a tired night janitor with overdue bills had noticed 4 seconds were not enough. Nobody put his name on the door. Caleb preferred it that way. The people who needed the extra seconds did not need to know who had noticed. They only needed the door to stay open.